What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Got a video for you guys tonight. This one is going to be about James Kirkland. James Kirkland will be released from prison very soon, and a lot of people are anticipating the return of James Kirkland. He went to jail about around a little earlier than this time last year. Has been in jail for a weapons charge, despite being, I believe, on either probation or parole, one of the two. But James Kirkland is being released from prison and will be resuming his boxing career. And I believe that there are a lot of eyes on James Kirkland, regardless of the situation that was at hand. Well, last year when he went to prison, he was about to be on the undercard of perhaps one of the biggest fights of the year. One of the events that many people were going to watch, which was Manny Pacquiao versus Ricky Hatton on May 2nd. Many people were going to watch that bout, so it would be a good way to showcase him, a good way to, open some eyes to follow James Kirkland. But what happened was, weeks prior to the matchup, he was arrested for carrying weapons, and weeks before, I remember weeks before, actually it was a couple days before, I was watching a documentary of Ann Wolfe, and they were talking about her being a female trainer and how she could possibly become the first female trainer to take a male fighter to victory and win a world championship. And a lot of people were actually talking about that. It was in a documentary. I can't remember which documentary it was, but it was a documentary on Ann Wolfe. And it wasn't necessarily a full documentary. I think it was more of a segment on her. But James Kirkland was featured in it, and we saw, another troubled teen or another troubled fighter that she had in that segment, and they were just saying good things about James Kirkland. The first time I watched James Kirkland fight was in November of 2008. On the undercard of Paulie Malignaggi versus Ricky Hatton. That was the first time I seen him fight, and I was rather impressed, despite seeing some flaws in his arsenal. But at the same time, within that arsenal, I did see a little bit of aggression and skill in his game set, and that's something that I've never really seen. Somebody who was aggressive and had a pretty good skill set, and not to mention a very good corner, since maybe Gerald McClellan back in 1995. And I'm not saying he's going down that path, because Gerald McClellan didn't necessarily get in trouble or anything, but James Kirkland kind of reminded me of a Gerald McClellan, the type of guy who was very skilled, had good physical attributes, and could have done a lot of things and could have opened a lot of eyes in the boxing world. And it takes a lot to build a superstar, especially in the sport now, with the multiple championship belts and the politics involved in the sport of boxing. It's harder to build a superstar, say, now than it was about 25 years ago, because now being a champion in 2010 is not like being a champion in 1990. And being a champion in 1990 is not like being a champion back in 1970. See, the significance of the organizations and the belts have changed, like every 20 years. When you look at it very closely, because from 1950 on, there have been more belts. Like, I believe in '61 was when the WBA and WBC became separate entities. So it's hard. So with all the belts now, four major championships and a bunch of minor championships. So it's a little bit harder to build a star now, I guess, based on that, because fighters aren't brought up the way that they used to be about 20-30 years ago. And James Kirkland is a guy that had the story and had the tools to become a huge boxing superstar. And a story similar is Bernard Hopkins. Bernard Hopkins, we all know, went to prison, came out of prison, and is now among one of boxing's elite. He's now among boxing's elite. and James Kirkland now has the potential to do so. He has the potential to be among boxing's elite, and he has a story to back it up. And we've seen many. Sorry, my computer unplugged here. We've seen many of these stories time and time again. Stories of adversity, people going through adversity and being able to overcome it by getting into a boxing ring. And the story is no different. James Kirkland has a story to tell, but that story is pretty much told when he's in the ring. When he's in the ring and he's fighting, and and showing off his skills. And now James Kirkland will be getting a third chance. And it's very rare for people to get a second chance in life, no matter what happens. There's people that don't even get a second chance at all. And now he's getting a third chance. And he has to take advantage of having this third chance. When James Kirkland comes back, I'd like to see him at 154. But I think 160 could be a good weight class for him. I understand he's gained a lot of weight, and this is from what I've read and what I've heard. According to his camp, interviews, I believe his manager is Cameron Duncan. I'm not sure. I know actually. I think Golden Boy probably managed him, one of the two. I believe more so Golden Boy, because they're the ones that tried to get him out of prison to fight on May 2nd of 2009. But his management has been saying, he gained a lot of weight. He'll come back and he'll fight. Maybe a 160-pound fight until he can work his way down. And hopefully, with James Kirkland, hopefully he gets built up. He gets brought up the right way. Not as far as outside the ring, but inside the ring. Hopefully they bring him back the right way. Don't necessarily put him in the ring with a Peter McNeely type fighter, like what happened with Mike Tyson in '95 when he came back. Put him in the ring against quality opposition, guys that we could see him learn from, and kind of like a trial and error type fight, where he can he could fight and we know he can win, but you have those guys that are going to be able to exploit those mistakes and have him adjust to it and see how he adjusts to it and how he adapts to it. I think that's the way to build him up and bring him back. His last fight was in March of 2009 against Joel Julio. Very good fighter. Just lost to Alfredo Angulo back in April. That was his last fight. He knocked him out earlier than Angulo did. So it says quite a bit about the skill and the style that he has. And hopefully this third time around, Kirkland has learned his lesson. Despite the stories of he's protecting himself with the weapon, but hopefully he learns his lesson this time around. Hopefully he has the right people in his corner, like say Bernard Hopkins. I almost said Johnny Tapia. You definitely sure as hell don't want Johnny Tapia and helping you out. And I think he should go the Johnny Tapia route, because remember in 1994 when Tapia got out of prison, he was very busy. He stayed busy to make up for those years that he missed. Despite Kirkland, missing a year and a half from the ring, I think that's the best route to go, to kind of like that Johnny Tapia route. Just simply fighting, fighting everybody you can for a few months and staying as active as you can until you get that title shot. I think that's the best route to go with James Kirkland. But I think it's best to have Bernard Hopkins in your corner, not as a trainer but as a mentor. So anyway, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.